Broadcasting live from an Airstream somewhere in Tornado Alley, bringing you the people, places, and stories from the Panhandle to the Red River. This is your Only in Oklahoma show.
And welcome to the show. Well, we've been to a ton of hole-in-the-walls in one-horse towns, but this time it's a hole in the ground in Marlow, Oklahoma, and it's literally the stuff of outlaw legends. And we're going to talk about that today. I'm Brett.
And I am Harley.
So, made a little trip, quick and dirty trip to Marlow, Oklahoma.
Yes, we did. It was spur of the moment, and I had a blast. There is a lot of really cool architecture in the town of Marlow, Oklahoma.
And I think I said it once, and I'll say it again for everybody else. You don't know what you're missing until you get out of the car and walk around. So many of these towns, you're passing through to the next stop. You don't have time. But if you ever have time, pick up a small town. Stop out. Take a look around.
I'm telling you, if you just drove through Marlow on, 81?
81, yeah.
If you're just driving through Marlow and you don't stop, then it just looks like a couple of traffic lights and some small businesses, and you'll miss out on all of the cool, interesting little places, all of the old architecture. It's a really neat place, but you've got to get off the main drag to see some of this stuff.
Absolutely. And especially on a Sunday, it's kind of it works two ways on Sundays in small towns. Most everything is closed on Sunday.
Yeah, I don't like that part.
Yeah.
I may get in trouble with the town elders in every town in the state of Oklahoma, but the whole town should not be shut down all day long. There's just too many people coming through.
Right, that want to eat somewhere other than the Pizza Hut and the gas station.
Or they, like to do a little bit of Christmas shopping 3 weeks before Christmas or 2 weeks before Christmas.
Yeah, and Marlow is one of those many towns that have a nice nice character to it. It's a cute little town. They've done some things. They're working on some things. They look like they're under construction. I just wish on days like today you had more access. But on the other side of that, heck, I could take some pretty good pictures from the middle of the street.
That is true. We wouldn't have that opportunity if the place was packed.
But Marlow, we've passed through many times. You've had some links to Marlow, and still currently do. But literally getting out of the car, I would have never known some of the stuff that we've encountered. Granted, we had a thing that we were going, and we'll get to it. But yeah, just get out of the freaking car.
So we have some Marlow facts. I guess we'll get to those and the purpose for today's show right after this.
All right, so we've talked a little bit in the past about some Only in OK swag and how you can get some and who the best people to get it from. I think we can agree it's Master Threads.
I don't think I have any argument with that at all. Master Threads is going to have you covered for all promotional products. More importantly, for uniforms and fan gear, that sort of stuff. Jeff over at Master Threads, 4-year wrestling champion for the state of Oklahoma. So the guy knows sports uniforms, wrestling, football, baseball, softball, soccer. If you need a uniform for your team, hit up Master Threads. It's masterthreads.com.
All right, Marlow. Things you didn't know. Or maybe you did. I don't know. But Marlow, Oklahoma was aptly named for the Marlow family that settled there in the Wild Horse Creek area, which is now referred to as Redbud Park. But the difference in Marlow and most towns that we've talked about in the past, it wasn't built by the railroad. It was built by the wagon trains.
I think that kind of gives it a more Wild West feel.
It's not industrial. It's dirt. It's dust and mud. And I was about to start singing the rodeo song by Garth Brooks. That's my kind of history, man.
I like it. One of the things we did see while we were there, the Redbud Chapel, very small building, but apparently they claim that it was the first Catholic church in the state.
Right. It was originally named Immaculate Conception. Now, there's a few of those around. As a matter of fact, there was one not too far from where I grew up, and I had family members that went to that.
But in 1905, a year after it was built, one of those strong Oklahoma winds,
straight line wind, as they say,
knocked this church 20 feet off of its foundation.
That's crazy. It doesn't surprise me.
So they put it on a new foundation,
Uh-huh.
and it continued to be an actual working church up until 1997, and they were going to demolish it,
Mhm.
and the town kind of said,
wait a second.
No.
No, they didn't. They saved a little money, came up with the Save the Church campaign, raised about $20,000 to help with repairs, and relocated to Redbud Park, where it sits to this day. And they still use it for weddings. It's more of a multi-denominational, non-denominational church now. But the interesting fact is, they built that church because back in the day, they had to go all the way to Rush Springs. Now imagine, that's not too far in a car, but during you had wagon wheels.
Yeah,
You
I'm
got
going to
mud.
say that is a bit of a trek on a horse.
3 hours
Ugh.
on a bad day to get to church.
Wow.
It's crazy, huh?
Speaking of Redbud Park,
Yeah.
that is the location of the Marlow's Brothers Cave.
Mm-hmm.
Random fact, though,
Yeah.
there's a 13,000 square foot state-of-the-art Western-style playground called the Hideout in the park as well.
But you wouldn't know it because they're closed on Sundays. Well, the park's not closed.
The park is not closed on
The park
Sundays.
is not closed on Sundays.
It is cold on this Sunday.
Oh, man, I don't know if I'd bet. We were at the park.
So the Marlow Brothers Cave.
Mm-hmm.
I think before we talk about the cave,
Yeah.
we probably need to talk about why it's Marlow Brothers Cave.
I mean, the town's named Marlow. They got to be a pretty big deal. I mean, they don't just name any town after just anybody.
The town's called Marlow.
Mm-hmm.
The sports team's called the Marlow Outlaws.
Which means there's some outlaws down there.
Maybe some foreshadowing here.
Maybe just a bit. Well, when the Marlows came to what was then just the Indian Territory, they brought with them 5 rambunctious boys. Alfred, George, Charlie, Llewellyn, and Boone. Interesting fact about Boone. Their mom, Martha Jane Marlow, was related to Daniel Boone, another Western legend.
Was he the knife guy?
He was the knife guy.
I don't think he was.
No, it was David
that was Bowie.
Bowie. Right.
David Bowie.
Baby Bowie. Yeah.
I think I have my history right on that one.
Well, and back to Redbud Creek again.
Okay.
Original homestead just north of Redbud Creek.
In the late 1800s.
In the late 1800s.
Now, can
Yeah.
we just talk about names for just a second? I don't want to sidetrack you too much.
Sure.
Dr. Marlow's first name is Williamson.
I mean,
I
like
love
it.
that.
It's cool.
Like, he's not William. He's Williamson.
Right. He has a last name for a first name and a last, you know what I mean? It's like Williamson is the last name typically, right?
Right. So they moved here in the late 1800s, but in 1888, the
Mhm.
Marlow boys were accused of horse thievery.
And back then they'll hang you for
That was
doing
a
that.
big deal.
That's a big deal.
Grand theft equine.
Yes, but
Yes.
only 4 of them were caught.
Charlie, Alfred, Boone, and Llewellyn.
That's
Llewellyn's another good name, by
It
the
is
way.
a really good name, Llewellyn. The only I've known of one other Llewellyn prior to today, Doug Llewellyn on People's Court. Sorry, I don't know how historically significant he is, but in 1888, U.S. Marshals escorted the Marlows to federal court in Graham, Texas, for trial. But the only brother that wasn't in custody,
Yes.
George
Jorge, got it.
Jorge, took the Marlow family to Graham, Texas, to have their names cleared and ended up being arrested on his arrival.
Okay, so this is becoming quite the story.
Yes.
Speaking of that,
Yeah.
this actually did become a story. A movie story, right?
Well,
Are we going to get to that?
we'll get to that because
All
there's some foreshadowing done later, not by us.
Okay, so what happens next, though?
Yes.
I'm asking.
Well, it's the thing of cowboy legend and lore. Boone escapes.
All right.
Comes back to Indian Territory, which is, again, still not Marlow yet. We're still in Indian Territory. But the other 4 brothers were awaiting transfer to a safer jail. Now, I'm saying that with air quotes because the citizens of Graham and even law enforcement made several attempts to lynch the brothers.
Wow, okay.
These over horses.
Well, I mean, it was a big deal back then. So, in their attempt to move them, on a very cold night in 1889. The brothers were shackled in pairs en route to Weatherford, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So right before they got to Weatherford, there was a signal given and a mob came out of nowhere. And apparently that's when a huge fight broke out.
Well, in most cases, when a mob shows up, they're there to bust out the outlaws, right?
That's the way the movies normally work.
Right. They put the dynamite on the jail cell or hitch a wagon to the bars of the jail and pull the wall down and away we go into the night. Not the case here?
No. So the mob was not there to rescue the Marlows. In fact, the guards who were there to protect the Marlows joined the angry mob and opened fire on the family.
It's just horses.
Oh, well, apparently horses is a big deal.
So evidently, the Marlows, in heroic fashion, this is where how legends are made. They leapt from the wagon, rolled a couple guards, stole their pistols, and killed everybody except 3 mob members.
Yeah, that's some Wild West
in shackles.
Wild West movie stuff right there.
I mean, it is.
Llewellyn and Alfred were dead at this point in time, and George and Charlie, seriously wounded, were shackled together.
Yes. And George had to do the unthinkable. He had to take a knife from a mob member and cut his dead brother's leg off at the joint to free himself. Would you do that?
I don't know. It's his brother.
I know. Would you do that? If I were shackled to you and I was dead, would you do that? That's a lot of dead weight. That's dead weight, man.
Well, he wasn't dead then. He was just seriously wounded. The 3 mob members that didn't die.
Lucky for them.
They were charged with a plot to attempt the murder of the Marlows.
That's crazy. But karma will catch up to you eventually.
Apparently.
And Boone, the one that escaped capture, was poisoned and then later shot for a bounty. $1,500. $1,500.
$1,500 in 1889 had to be a crap ton of money. The surviving brothers, George and Charlie, I would have assumed that Charlie would have died from his brother cutting his leg off, but apparently he didn't die. The 2 of those guys moved to Colorado, became upright citizens and law enforcement agents.
And one of them actually became like the board of directors for the Department of Education up there.
For real?
Yeah. I mean, talk about turning over a new leaf.
Okay.
But you were mentioning they could have created a story out of this. Well, there was a judge that was convicting the mob members that were left in 1891. And basically he said this deserves to be commemorated in a song or a story, which it probably has been in song, and it's definitely been in a story of sorts. It was made into a movie back in 1965. The surviving Marlow heirs signed the rights over to Hollywood producers to make a movie about the infamous Marlow boys called The Sons of Katie Elder. It starred Dean Martin and John Wayne. So
the Dean and the Duke?
The Dean and the Duke.
All right.
And they actually have a museum in town where they have the actual contract that was signed and the original headstones for the brothers.
And a lot of other really interesting...
a lot of really other...
finds.
Cool finds, yeah.
Yeah. As far as the Marlow Outlaw Cave, you and I went
today. Did. Yeah, it was a bust to a degree.
It was.
Yeah.
It is covered with a metal building. The doors are locked, and to the best of my knowledge, they've not been unlocked in some time.
Yeah, you have to get permission or see it by appointment. So,
yes.
Now, the cave itself, though, is actually located on the old Marlow homestead. It's believed to be used by cattle rustlers, among them the Marlow brothers in the late 1800s. Basically, the idea was you jump out and you steal the horses. I don't know. I am not jumping out of anything. I won't jump out of a moving vehicle, let alone jump into a moving herd of animals.
Let's just go back to Redbud Park here.
Okay.
Because this homestead was actually partially on the park.
Right.
And it's right at the Chisholm Trail. So it makes a lot of sense that if you were that type of person, that might be something that you would do with a cave found there. There is some contention about who used the cave for what.
Right.
But the cave was lost for like 100 years.
Yeah.
It got covered up, and it wasn't rediscovered until 2004 when some city workers were mowing the park, which is interesting that there was already a park there.
Right.
They're mowing the park, and one of the tires fell into a sinkhole.
Right, and exposed the floor. When you look down it, you could see the floor of the cave. Now, what I think is cool, the Sam Noble Museum of Natural History came out, examined it, kind of did some excavating, found that there were pine beams that supported the walls. There were some empty bottles down there. Evidence that it had been used.
Now, back to it's locked up.
Yeah.
It's probably a good thing. It's literally just a hole in the ground held up with pine beams. It's in a park.
It's in a park.
So you know that if it was just wide open, some kid's going to get hurt in there, or people are going to be doing unspeakable, unsavory things in a place that's well hidden. So I get it. It was kind of a letdown that we couldn't just walk in. Like there wasn't somebody manning it. And I understand it's just one little small piece of history and you can't have somebody there 24/7.
Well, yeah, but I am glad that they decided to kind of preserve the area and didn't look at it as this could be a potential hazard and just fill it with dirt without further investigation.
That would have been a great loss, I think.
But I think what they did, there were a lot of people, local historians, people that were survivors of relatives that had been around since then, that kind of put information together, and they were kind of able to connect the historical dots to ensure that everybody knows, hey, this isn't just a hole in the ground. This has some historical significance. So they kind of went out of their way to make sure to preserve it. So I get putting the building. I just wish there was more. Don't even put a number on there that you can call to say, hey, come unlock me.
Yeah, but again, I get it. If it's one tiny little spot, historically speaking and physically speaking,
right,
you can't just have somebody manning that 24/7.
That's true.
So I get it. But they do a lot of Old West, Wild West reenactments out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it is said that on occasion you can actually go in, but it's typically during one of those events.
Yeah, it's relatively seasonal, but if you get a chance and it's on a peak period, go out there and check it out. Let us know what you think.
We would recommend not doing it on the coldest day in the year.
Don't do it. Yeah, not today, for sure.
But there is something that you can do on the coldest of days.
What's that?
You can go to Facebook and go to the OnlyinOKShow page.
Yeah.
Give us a like. Give us a review. We would appreciate it.
Absolutely. We're always looking for new street team members to spread the gospel of the OnlyinOKShow, and you can do that right here every day of your life.
This has been the OnlyinOKShow. I am Harley.
And I'm Brett.
And we're out of here.
Dr. Williamson Marlow and his wife, Mary. Why do I want to say Mary Jane? Martha Jane.
You have to start that over.
Okay.
I was laughing.
Yeah, all right. Well, Dr. Marlow and his wife, Martha, established the original homestead.
So, as far as the Marlow Outlaw, blah, 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 blah.